Everyone, we're having 4 power talks this morning, and what I'm knowing is that all of us, whether we were alone or in a crowd, had a beautiful Christmas. And our talks today are releasing the old and welcoming the new. And releasing the old and welcoming the new is about readiness. It's about being ready to grow, to receive, and to participate in inner growth. We let go of the old and welcome in the new in this moment. What is between letting go of the old and welcoming the new is now. This now moment. And the ingredients of releasing the old and welcoming the new are readiness, receptivity, and surrender. And we can only be ready now, be receptive now, and surrender to the divine influx now. After Christmas dinner, one of my dear friends and I, we were sitting at the table and we started to have a conversation. The men had moved on to doing the dishes, which is code for watching the Lakers game. And of course, and it was kind of funny because that's really what happened. And so she and I had this conversation. And it was about what is it that when we're younger, we seem so much more ready for to meet someone, to see something, to hear someone, to attend an event. And our lives take on a totally new trajectory or new direction. For example, my friend Barbara, who I was talking with, when she was about 27 years old, she went to an art show in a small town in Northern California, and she saw a painting by Gilbert Williams. At that time, he was an unknown artist living at Mount Shasta. She decided to become his art rep. She opened an art gallery in Mill Valley, California, and her life changed forever in many, many ways. So what is it that it seems like when we're younger, we're more open to that kind of magnitude of shift and of change? And the truth is, in this teaching, we learn that as we open to change, it can happen at any time. It's always available to us. And it's about our receptivity, our readiness, our saying yes to the divine influx. Another example, another friend of mine, 2 years ago, she went to a pre-Oscar party in a private home. And there was a young man who'd been hired to play guitar and sing at this party. And when she heard him sing, she made the decision then and there that she had to help him bring his gift of music to the world. And her life took on a whole new direction as well. And she's in her 60s. Now, what preceded this attending this party and making this decision was months of inner meditation, months of meditating on readiness, months of going within and knowing that within herself she was birthing something new. Because the play of life always manifests in different forms. The inner growth always manifests as the play of life for each and every one of us. So as we welcome the new, we're welcoming the new growth. Whether we moved to Hawaii, which I did in my 20s, and my life forever took a new direction. We meet Gilbert Williams, or we begin to manage Emmett Sky Spooner, who now is writing songs with the likes of Sheryl Crow's songwriters. As we let go of the old, we enter into the new. And we do this when we are ready, when we are receptive, and when we let go. And it doesn't matter if it's August 31st, July 2nd, or today. We begin when we begin, and the time is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Louisa. I'm Katherine McKinney, and I am welcoming all of you here. I'm very honored to be here to speak to you today in this sacred space, in this wonderful time. And I thank you all for being here to help us to release the old and welcome in the new. When I was a little girl, it seemed like at this time of year on television, there was very often these cartoon versions of Father Time, who was hunched over, walking with his scythe, and he was about to hand off the time duties to the baby new year. It was an amazing thing to me, and I was fascinated by that. Releasing the old and embracing the new. That sounds to me a whole lot like welcoming change. Now, it is often said that we resist change, that people don't like to change. I don't know that that's always true. I think that most of us, if not all of us, like change sometimes. And we welcome it, we even pray for it at times. Our teaching promises that if you change your thinking, you can change your life. I think sometimes the change we resist the most are those changes that appear to be thrust upon us. Kind of like when you're out on the roadway and a car darts in front of you. You resist that, not because you really need to be one car length further down the road. We don't like it because someone else made us be one car length further back. We don't like that interference in our lives. And yet, we resist that change. In the scheme of things, having a car cut you off is really not a big deal, but sometimes it actually feels like it does in the moment. Now, the why of that is actually another discussion, but what we can know is that when change does seem to just come into our lives, we have a choice about how we greet that change. In the roadway metaphor I'm using, we say that they can never cut you off if you brake and allow them to come in. That is the response rather than the reaction. Ernest Holmes says on page 385 that nature demands change if to make us advance. He says that we are manifesting this change all the time, and that if we don't do that, we become stagnant. But he says we should welcome change with a smile on our lips and a song in our heart. The idea that we can change is very important in this entire idea of change. I am part of this whole world of change and effects. I am one in this one mind. I am a point of power and surrounded by infinite intelligence. I smell, I think, I feel, I hear. There's money in my life, there are conditions, there's health, there's happiness, and all of these things are effects. There is nothing outside this one mind that causes any of these things in my life. I can have an argument with a friend, an angry argument. I can have a loving compliment from another friend. A deer runs in front of my car and I hit it. A man at Smart and Final pays for my groceries as I'm going through. They're all my experiences. And nothing happens outside of me. Nothing happens to me that doesn't happen through me. There is nothing in my DNA or anything that I have inherited that causes or controls the conditions in my life. The change that the baby new year represents in our lives is being done, being created by the thoughts that I'm thinking right now. All of us want some kind of change in our lives. That's the way it is. I will never cease being and desiring, said the poet. All of us want some kind of change. So what are we willing to change in our thinking to bring about that magnificent baby new experience in our lives? On Christmas Eve, Dr. Moira invited us all for the 12 days of Christmas to take 5 minutes of silence in each of those days. I am saying to all of us, we've got 9 days left. If we take that 5 minutes and contemplate what it is that we want to release so that we can create the change in 2015. We're creating 2015 right now. Let's do it on purpose and make this the year that we thrive in 2015. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. When you woke up this morning, did you say, "Yippee, I'm alive"? Or did you say, "Oh my God, what time was church at today"? I think I did a little of the both. My cats woke me up this morning. I'm here to remind us and remind myself that no matter what we're going through right now, who we are is way more important than where we are. So we can begin anew the moment we decide we want to begin anew. It can be New Year's Day, it can be next week, it can be today, it can be this moment. But the thing is who we are is way more important than where we are. Do you know what that means? That means that no matter what you're going through, no matter what I'm going through, it's not who I am. But we make that big mistake, don't we? We turn around and we think we're our job. We think we're our troubles. We think we're our whatever it is. We're the married person, the single person, the divorced person, the sick person, the happy person, the wealthy person, the broke person, right? We think that because we let our conditions kind of define who we are. So when we say, "Oh, I want to create something new," we forget, as this teaching reminds us, you know what? However we respond to our moment that we're in right now sets the tone for what happens next. That's why they say careful what you're thinking into, because you're creating the next moment. That's your future right in that second. You know, we say, "Oh God, I want this, I want to create that." We're so busy telling God what it is we want, or even worse, we're telling God all the bad things that are going on. And we're describing all our effects to God, that God may be responding to us, but we are so loud and noisy that we can't hear what God's responding, right? We want to tell our story, and we come from that story all the time. But this teaching reminds us we're not about our story. It's nothing to do with that. Who we are is not where we are in the moment. So it says you want to create a new experience in your life, you think it into being. And you say, "Well, how the heck do I do that? I'm already in this pickle by my thinking. How do I think?" Well, think about it. If you want to create a new experience in your life, who do you need to be for that experience to show up? If you want to start dating somebody, you have to think, is the person that I want to date, would they want to date someone like me? Or do I need to edit myself? What do I want to create in my experience? And we forget we're never doing it by ourselves, are we? We think we have to do everything by ourselves. We think we always have to do it by ourselves, but we forget every thought that we're thinking is either a thought of possibility or it's a thought of limitation or contraction in our experience. And we forget that the moment we get into harmony with that spirit that created us, that is how things change. We also have to remember that the truth that we're knowing about ourselves is not our truth, it's God's truth. Because if we're thinking down at this level and God has a much better experience for us that he wants to create when we're saying we want these divine things to happen, if we're not open to it, we're not knowing the truth that we know of the everyday stuff. We're knowing the God truth, the real possibility of experience. My friend Dave is here from Oregon, so I'm going to share this story. You know the frying pan theory? So there's a guy that's fishing, and he's up the shore, and he's catching fish. And the second he pulls a fish out, he's measuring the fish. And then he's throwing some back, or he's throwing them in the bucket. So this guy's up the stream watching him like, what the heck is this guy doing? You know, he's throwing away those big fish and stuff like that. So finally, he watches this guy doing this all afternoon, and he goes up to the guy and says, you know, I keep watching you. You're catching fish like crazy, but, you know, you measure them, and then you're throwing a lot of them back. What's going on? He goes, oh, simple. I'm measuring them because that's how big my frying pan is. So the only fish I keep are the ones that are going to fit in my frying pan. We do that, don't we? Oh, no, I couldn't possibly think of $1 million. Oh, no, I couldn't possibly have a fantastic relationship or whatever it is, right? We put our own limit on it. This teaching reminds us that has nothing to do with it. That has nothing. Who you are is so great and so amazing. How do you create new things, new experiences that are greater and grander and expressing the real thing that makes your heart sing? How do you do it? You know it. You know it. You know it, and you experience it in your mind with every single sense that you can engage. And you get all that energy behind it, and you stay in that possibility. Because remembering that the truth that we're knowing is God's truth. It's God's truth. And so when we get centered with that and put all of our energy into knowing what we want to create anew, what's the energy we want to bring into our life, what makes your heart sing versus telling ourselves, oh, I think I can have this, maybe, but I don't want to dream too big because I don't want to get disappointed. Have you ever done that? You just don't want to. Sometimes we don't want to do what we have to do to be who we came here to be. And all it really requires is be your great self. Take a breath, get in silence, stay centered, trust in the experience, and know that there is a universe that supports you, that loves you, and is supporting every single thought that you're having. So think high thoughts, think harmonious thoughts that are in the creative, and know that you came here to be this great thing. Affirm with me. I am ready. I am ready to bring on the new. There is a power in me that cannot be stopped. So look out, world. Here I come. And so it is. Let's welcome up Miss Cathie.
Well, everybody said everything that needs to be said, including Sherry. I love that song. Yeah. Well, I want us to picture some things together today. One of them is, if you can picture in your mind a very bare tree branch down here, and up here is a butterfly. Down here there's a caterpillar hanging onto one of the branches. And in the middle is a saying by Rumi that says, life is balance. It's balance of knowing when to hold on, like the caterpillar, and when to let go, which is the butterfly releasing itself to its beautiful life. The other day I saw an interview with Paul Williams, who you may know has written a book, co-written a book, called Gratitude and Trust. And in it he discusses 6 affirmations that will change your life. And the book, as he says, is not just meant for people dealing with addiction. I haven't read the book, but one of the things he said just grabbed me in the most amazing way, because he said he got to that bottom in his life and realized that something had to change, and he came to the decision that it was him. We can choose at any time to change our lives just by changing our mind. And Mary talked about life reflecting. Well, Ernest Holmes actually did. He changed Emma Curtis Hopkins' words from your life is a reflection of your thoughts. But he said your life is a mirror of your thoughts. Now, a mirror gives us a really clear example of the things we need to change when we look in it. But there are other things we need to change too. And part of our wonderful life is letting go of the intangible things. I read somewhere where it said that holding on to resentment is like letting someone live in your head rent-free. Ernest Holmes talks about holding on to thoughts, and he admits, I think it's around page 403 in the textbook, it's not easy to let go because those things are so ingrained, but we give those things in our past so much power. Just that quick thought, we live the whole experience. And it reminds me, I'm sort of into animals, probably because of Africa, but I read a great story about an elephant. The fellow's walking past him and he sees the elephant is being restrained by this tiny little rope. And he knows perfectly well that the elephant could just walk away and break that rope because it's so powerful and so strong. So he says to the trainer, you know, I don't understand. Why doesn't he break away? And he says, well, when they're little, we tether them with a tiny rope and they get used to the fact that they can't walk away with that rope on their foot. And so they never change. And we know that elephants are really intelligent, but that is so ingrained in them that they can't break away from the thought that I have this little rope around my ankle, so I can't go anywhere. We're a little bit like that sometimes. And I've heard a few references to being 60, being older. And I read it, I'm not taking it personally, but I read this thing the other day and it said something about youth is being allowed to stay up till midnight on New Year's Eve. Middle age is being forced to. So much of the encouragement we get is thinking about career, thinking about what you want to do with your life, how you want to change your life. And I'm sure there are some of us sitting here going, well, you know, I'm retired, or I had my career and it's done now, or I'm, you know, there's no real point. I'm listening to all this stuff. But, you know, any time is the time to, just a little contradiction in that song, Sherry, drag up some of those dreams you had and brush them off and look at them. And maybe not making resolutions because they're just goals not put on a piece of paper, but get a piece of paper and divide it in half and go, this is what I want to let go of, and this is what I want to bring into my life. Well, this is what I want to try. Do it in pencil because life's very fluid and you can get rid of it if you want to change your mind. Or if you do it on the computer, you just do erase. But write it down. Silly things. It doesn't matter how important, you know, how real it is, how life-changing it is, how world-changing it is. It's just anything that just comes into your head. Because so many people start their lives anew when they feel like they're a little older, in their 60s. So just, my thing is sort of letting go of all that past, living the present, not cluttering our brains with the past, which is it's a challenge for me. But it's a wonderful way of writing down just silly things you want to try. We call it the bucket list nowadays, but go for it. And just enjoy that moment. I did that. Yes, okay. So I read a thing the other day. I'm very grateful for this floral pulpit. But it said part of it is we're here where we are because you chose to hang on. You chose to give up. You chose to react. You chose to let go. You chose to feel insecure. You chose to trust. You chose to feel anger. You chose to fight back. You chose to despair. You chose to have hope. You chose to ignore your intuition. You chose to be naive. You chose to be stuck in the past. You chose to look the other way. You chose to not listen. You chose your perspective. Now, choose dignity. Choose to forgive yourself. Choose to forgive others. Choose to show the world you're not a victim. Choose to see your value. Choose to let go and choose to renew your life. And so it is.